Well, here I am on an entirely new platform. Glad you could join me. I thought it might be a little better to come over to YouTube instead of spamming everyone's Instagram and Facebook feeds with a ton of 1-minute disjointed videos. Oh, there's a dent! I think that, as I study this dent on my very brand new gas tank, which I am not very happy about, I should introduce who I am, why I'm on the platform, and for anyone new, what I'll be doing on this channel. So hello! This is the Mechanically Declined YouTube channel. I've been doing the thing on Instagram and on Facebook for a good amount of time, and a number of people have said, hey, you should make a YouTube channel, so here you go, friends. As the channel steadily progresses, you can expect to see the very, very gradual refurbishment, I won't go so far as restoration, of this 1964 Chrysler Newport, among other smaller projects. You like unqualified people fumbling with wiring that he shouldn't be messing with? I'm your guy. Do you like unqualified individuals rolling around in 2-ton death machines that have never run in years? I'm your guy. Now, I can't promise any extravagant editing or high-quality content on a regularly weekly scheduled sort of calendar, but what I can promise is the occasional tidbit of knowledge and possibly the occasional laugh, depending on your sense of humor. So, without further ado, and at least until I get bored with it, welcome to Mechanically Declined. Now, back to the fuel tank. Now, to avoid the previous rust escapades of Baby's fuel tank, what we're going to do is clean it and paint it. And though not accurate to the way it would have been from the factory, this will prevent salt and other such road debris that we experience here in Maryland from harming the tank and causing all those holes we were dealing with earlier. First off, we're going to use some naphthalene to work out all the grease that they put around the weld. Then, after that's dried off, we're going to use some distilled white vinegar to lightly etch the surface so the paint will stick. Use a bit of denatured alcohol to clean off any remnants of the vinegar, and then we will be ready for some metallic silver paint. In my experience of using naphthalene as a solvent, I found it's a little inefficient, but it's good and cheap. So the key is to work in very, very small controlled zones, because the rag will fill up quickly, and you really do not want to be wiping fresh grease all over your freshly cleaned fuel tank. You'll be able to tell that you're done with the first step when the surface is a little bit less glossy, and when a rag that is brushed across the surface no longer comes up with any sort of greasy sheen. Of course, you'll want to do that on both sides, and the next step is to lightly etch it with some vinegar. Now, unlike with the naphthalene, we're using very, very wide strokes as we start to see oxidation patterns form, where the zinc is being lightly eaten away by our vinegar solvent. This is a good sign, as dull surfaces paint a little better, and this will keep the notoriously paint-killing zinc at bay when it's coated. With that done, we need only wait for the vinegar to do its job, and then we can come back, wipe it all off, and prep for painting. While the vinegar is doing its thing, we're going to clean up these gas tank straps with the help of our favorite choice safety equipment and the fan favorite, Mr. Spinny Boy. And thanks to Mr. Spinny Boy's gentle, very, very precise technique, we have a nicely rust-free and mostly smooth surface, ready for paint, just in time to wipe off the vinegar from the other surface. With the vinegar having eaten away at the zinc slightly, we should get very good adhesion. Now, we're just going to take some denatured alcohol on a shop towel and get rid of it. And that is exactly what we want to see. I'm about halfway through cleaning off the tank. I've just done the top side. And you can see there's a very light metallic hue on the shop rag, which means that the zinc is coming off slightly, and the vinegar has definitely done its job properly. Now we're going to use a little bit of the same alcohol to clean off any rust debris from the straps, and then we're going to paint those first with some of the black enamel that we used on the underside of the car earlier. And then this will get a nice coat of metallic silver. There is the finished strap 1. And there is strap 2. Time for paint. Alright, now that everything's hung up nicely for painting, we can use what's left of this first can and just in very gentle strokes. And there we go. Nicely coated. And, no doubt, in time for the tank to be dried and ready for some paint itself. The final step in getting this ready for paint is plugging the holes on either end so that no paint gets in our fuel. So for that, I'll be lightly oiling this original fuel filler neck and using a piece of paper to plug out the sender port. So the key in the case of inserting the fuel filler neck is very gentle twisting pressure, as we don't want to damage the grommet. I'll do that off camera because I really do not want to rip the O-ring. And like that, there we are. And there we go. Pardon my not filming it, but here's the gas tank nicely hung, though somewhat sketchily, with some more clothes hangers. We're gonna hope that it holds, and if it doesn't, we're gonna cry because it'll dent on the floor. But we're gonna use the same method with our silver paint and just make even strokes on one side and then the other. This is why we paint the top of the tank first that no one sees, because I discovered that the can will spurt at times, which has created a couple small runs, which kind of damage the effect of the rest of the tank. This'll happen sometimes. This tank right now looks awesome. I feel like I'm covered in glitter and all sorts of sparkles, probably on my face as well. I've run out, and the can once again sputtered, with less than 2 square feet to go. So my brother is currently making a beeline for the hardware store to get another can. So whilst my brother is saving my life, I decided I'd do a little bit of work on the fuel sender as I watch to make sure the tank doesn't fall. Now, this is the same spec, the one that is definitely supposed to fit in my car. Unfortunately, it doesn't. So what we'll have to do is take this pipe bender my neighbor lent me, and we will use this to slightly skew the fuel line in an upward direction, and then we will also skew the float such that it fits. So first, we carefully remove the delicate plastic filter. Next, we affix our device of bending, and then we will bend it, which I cannot film as I do not have someone else to film for me. And again, it's a slightly finicky process that I really can't afford to get wrong. I don't know about you, but I'd venture to say that almost looks professional. Alright, many thanks to my fantastic brother. The paint job is now complete. Just in the nick of time before things started to get tacky. So we've got a nice smooth transition, and I'd call that an absolute save. From a distance at least, you really cannot tell that the tank is painted at all. To fit the sender, simply lift the float and feed that in first. Then follow it with the filter, the rheostat, and there we are. I'm expecting I'm gonna have to bend this just a touch more. And I will. Alright, one much more pronounced bend later. I'm so sorry for the swaying. And let's see if we can get a nice fit into the cylinder. Trying not to catch the wires, index the little tabs, and that is just about perfect. Now we're just going to take our trusty dusty oil and lubricate the gasket slightly and rub it over the mating surfaces so that we get a good seal. And then we will install this. So first, insert fuel sender. Next, insert gasket and locking ring. And just a tip for if you're working upside down like this, if you use a sticky oil, it'll actually help hold the gasket in and give you time to put in your locking ring. With that done, the fuel tank is officially ready to use. So now we move on to the sound deadening, wiring, and most importantly, fuel line routing. So this large sound deadening pad, which goes on the top of the tank, is a little worse for wear, but actually still much more than salvageable. Alright, with the help of a fly swatter, worked surprisingly well. It's more than clean enough to use, yeah. One trip to the store later, and I've got all the clamps that I could possibly need for my fuel lines. New bolts, plus a spare to replace the others, and as a bonus, these are stainless, so they will not rust, and with a little bit of Loctite, they will go nowhere. Time to get these strips on the newly restored straps. These strips are actually just sort of tarred paper, kind of like what you'd have under the shingles in your roof. And luckily they gave us just a bit of extra length so we can get this on nicely and trim off the excess. We're just going to take some medium strength Loctite spray adhesive, spray a nice stripe on both the felt strip and the strap, and then we'll stick it on. With both sides sprayed and a touch of alignment, this goes on very, very smoothly and will hopefully stay there through the installation without wandering about. There is strap 1, and there is 2. Now for a bit of housekeeping. We're going to cut off my temporary fuel line, locate and remove the old line surrounding this old filter, and attach to the hard line which you cannot see by the frame rail. It's currently sitting on its side. Set out a bed of fresh, clean cotton shop towels so that the paint on the bottom, the side that people will see, doesn't get all marred up. And we'll get this fuel line show on the road. So another little upgrade I'm making is leaving these squeezy things, these just really, really cheapy clamps in the past where they belong, and I'm upgrading to proper stainless hose clamps, which will do definitely a lot for the longevity of the system. All of my new hardware, save for the rings and the tank, are stainless. And there we go. It's got its hose clamp on, and it's all nicely sticked. Good rule of thumb is to make sure this bolt here is facing the proper direction to be unscrewed from under the car. Just in case you have to make one of those emergency roadside repairs, it's best not to have to reach a screwdriver up against the frame and down, because that would just be annoying. And here is the final remnant of the old hosing system, filter included, which is, of course, using the very, very dated, but still used today because they're cheap, if it'll focus, spring clamps. I've personally chosen to go with a dual filter setup, so this will be my primary, replacing the one that we just took out. Nice, shiny, and new. And now we can peer down into the engine compartment and see the light shine of the stainless steel clamps and the brand new fuel filter, which is lined up just about perfectly to hit our fuel pump. We're just going to grab 2 more of these lovely hose clamps, affix this end to our filter, and just see how much length we need, and cut it off there. And there we go. A tighter fit has not been seen in all the land. Alright, may have gotten a touch carried away. We've got the new fuel line, and the new fuel filter is currently attached. Now I'm going to take this pipe bender and skew this hard line down slightly, such that we get a nice stress-free connection. And there we go. A nice clean bend downward with minimal kinking. And like that, we are entirely done with our front-end routing. If I'm being entirely honest, I'm actually rather terrified of this moment. There's the old tank. Here's my nice shiny new tank. This is where things get a little difficult. My protective cloth is in place. My new J-bolts with their actually fitting now stainless steel hardware. In goes the cloth of safety and scratch preservation. In goes strap 1. And strap the second. Trapping me between them quite nicely. Plan is, push the gas tank this way. Hope not to scrape it on all these bits falling down. Though if we do, it's not a big deal. Back the gas tank onto the straps. Get under it, and then hook it in to these keyholes. I'm probably not going to film that. Alright, those of you from Instagram will remember this view very, very well. I have everything sort of soft set. Now I just have to tighten these after aligning the front piece. Then I need to hook up this fuel line. And in theory, I need an alligator clip going from this fuel line to this fuel line so that the fuel sender can use this other line, which has popped out of place for some reason, to judge how much fuel is in the tank. And like that, we are done under the car. The straps are nicely secure, and this tank feels like it's welded there. Now we just need to align the filler neck, find an alligator clip to put between here and here, then we are ready to fill with fuel and start the car. Well, that doesn't look too bad at all. Looks kind of original, save for all the shimmer. And the new tank looks absolutely great. Instead of using alligator clips, I'm going to hammer down this piece of copper to make the connection bridge between the sender and the fuel line. Took a hammer, flattened this out, and then annealed it, just so that we have a little bit more surface area to work with. Though certainly not my best work. For a minute and a half with a piece of stripped out Romex, I'd call it serviceable. This is the part where we pray it doesn't leak. And here is future me again with a part that I forgot to film. We're going to put the key in, watch the fuel gauge, and, spoiler alert, it works. Slowly climbing as it should. Also fiddled with the temperature gauge, but as the engine is ice cold, it wouldn't go up anyway.
You let them go first, right?
Yep. I'm getting out of the way of the car.
Okay, good. There she goes! She's on the road! Oh, that's exciting.
Oh, fantastic.
Doesn't she look beautiful on the road?
Oh, the indicators work. Nice.
Yep, his signals are working. Oh. Sweet.
Nice. And that's as far as I got. I had filmed a lovely ending to the video, you know, even lovelier than my Comic Sans here. But it got corrupted, and now it is too dark outside to film it again. So, this is the new ending. I really appreciate you hanging in there till the end. It's a pretty long video for a first. And if you liked it, I would be absolutely honored if you considered subscribing to follow me on this restorative adventure with the car and all the little projects in between. Also, if you have any advice or noticed something that I missed or did wrong, please let me know in the comments. Any feedback is always appreciated and is invaluable in the completion of this project. So, thanks again, and have a good day, night, afternoon. Thanks.